all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and tees had never crossed my mind. But after some discussion with my closest, dearest friends, I decided that I'd give it one.
Welcome into another episode of the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. I'm Andrew Putters. I'm here with my partner in crime, league golf editor at Rotoballer.com, Joe Nicely. Joe, we're in the dead center of the fall swing season. Football is hot and heavy. We're about to get into divisional series in NFL. College football is crazy right now. Top teams going down every week. Rotoballer.com has a lot of things to offer for your daily fantasy needs, Joe. Fill us in a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, we got any sports you want over there. We got football, obviously. Our NFL product is one of the best in the industry. We got NBA starting up. My man Thunder Dan over there can hook you up every day with NBA DFS. And obviously we have PGA. So we hope you go to rotoballer.com. You can sign up for any of the sports over there using my promo code NICE, N-I-C-E, and get 10% off when you sign up.
Thank you, Joe. Rotoballer.com. Like I said before, and like I'll always say, best place in the world for your daily fantasy needs. Last week, Joe, over in the Zozo Championship, Matsuyama won in dominant fashion, 5-stroke victory over Tringale and Brendan Steele. But this week, baby. We're back on the our side of the globe. Bermuda Championship at Port Royal Golf Course, Robert Trent Jones design at Southampton Parish, Bermuda. Really a great tournament. We just wish the field was better, Joe. Not much to say about it. It's the third playing. This tournament started back in 19. Brendan Todd won at 24 under. Brian Gay last year won at 15 under. This is easily the shortest golf course that anybody on tour will see all year. Par 71, 6,800 yards. Like I said, Robert Trent Jones design is designed in 1970, revamped in 95 by Robert Trent Jones, and then Roger Rulewich in 2008 also did a few things with the course. Signature hole number 16, par 3 along the cliff, between nothing between the green and the tee but the Atlantic Ocean. Real picturesque view. And really, it's crazy for a coastal course. It really has a lot of the British accolades to a golf course, coastal course that you'll see over in Europe. And like we said before we got on here, really this golf course is if Hilton Head and Pebble Beach had a baby, that would be this golf course. So Bermuda throughout, and was always your rough. Joe, anything that you want to mention about the course in particular before we get into this?
Not really, AP. You hit on it pretty well, man. One of the shortest we'll see all year. And obviously that brings some shorter hitters into play. We've seen Brandon Todd and Brian Gay win the 2 editions of this event. So that kind of lets you know that you definitely don't need to be a bomber to compete here. Something we're going to kind of keep an eye on is the wind. We saw some pretty big gusts last year over the weekend. Big discrepancy between Brendan Todd winning at 24 under in 2019 and Brian Gay winning at 15 under last year. So we kind of see what kind of difference the wind makes. Might want to keep an eye on guys that are kind of tried and true wind players. But when you boil it down, AP, you're looking for guys that can hit a ton of fairways, looking for guys that are really good iron players, and guys that are good Bermuda putters.
Absolutely, Joe. I like where your head's at on that. Really wish, after looking at this slate, we'll start here in just a second, but I'm going to talk about the guy at the top, Matthew Fitzpatrick, 11,000. I just wish he wasn't 11,000, Joe. He would be a no-brainer here, but he is. So let's get right to the slate. Fitzpatrick, 11, Bisenhunt, Mika Pereira, Patrick Reed, and Seamus Power. That's your top 5 when it comes to price, Joe. I can see a lot to love about some of these guys and see a lot that I don't love about some of these guys. I don't believe any of these guys here at the top have much of a positive when it comes to tournament history. Now, I know this tournament's only been played a couple of years, but like you said, being so short, it's going to bring the whole field in. I'm actually a little bit crazy enough excited to watch a little of this. It's just a shame we don't have a better field.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it kind of is what it is when it comes to salary scale, AP. An extremely weak field. all the salaries are going to be gross this week, man. It's one of those weeks when you finish building your roster. It's going to feel pretty gross when you click submit on these. You're going to be pretty uneasy when things get started Thursday morning with the guys that are in this field. So let's use that to our advantage. Let's embrace the volatility. Let's shoot for upside. Let's be willing to take some chances in GPPs. But because there's a lot of guys in this field that don't have a lot of course history, there's maybe a lot of guys that we don't even consider rostering that often that we're going to be forced to consider this week. So this slate certainly throws some curveballs at us, man. But this is actually a really interesting golf course. And to kind of echo what you said, Andrew, it would be really interesting to see a strong field play this golf course, because I do think it is a neat layout, something different than we normally see on the PGA schedule. But kind of circling back to the top of the scale, you mentioned very, very little course history up here with these guys who are kind of hit and miss players anyway, for the most part, especially when we get below the 10K mark. But above 9,000, we've only got 3 guys with any type of course history. Only 1 guy above 10K with any course history. That's Seamus Power, who's went T37, T31 here in 2 starts. But Matty Fitz, first start here, is coming off a win over in Europe. Got off to a really strong start last season, kind of faded down the stretch. But he always seems to play well in Europe, and we feel like this would be a great fit for him. But he is coming off that victory over there in the Andalusian Masters. So it remains to be seen how he's going to handle that. Might imagine there'll be a little bit of a hangover. We've also got the travel factor coming into play. So while Matty Fitz is a nice fit on paper, I don't know about pulling the trigger at 11K. But there's a lot of guys you can say that about this week. Christian Bezuidenhout, also another great fit on paper. His strength is the putter, which is something that we can look at this week, something we're going to give a little bit more weight to than normal, Bermuda putting. So I think you can certainly consider Bezuidenhout. Ranks out first in this field in strokes gained putting on Bermuda over the last 24 rounds. Let's talk a little bit about Mito, Andrew. Mito Pereira, tee to green, I think he sticks out from the rest of this field. He's first in strokes gained approach, first in overall proximity, 4th in birdies gained. The guy's just been on fire since coming up from the Korn Ferry Tour. And despite the lack of course history here, I think you have to give Mito a look up here. Patrick Reed, coming off the COVID, missing the Ryder Cup, kind of don't know where he is. But he's always dangerous, and we know he has that win ability to him. And then there's Seamus there at 10-2. You don't love the price, but there is course history here, and he's coming off a strong showing in his last start, gained over 6.5 strokes on approach. I lean Mito here, but I can see going different angles in GPPs up here, AP. What are you thinking, man?
I mean, normally in any circumstance, especially if you go 2 years back on the calendar, I'm putting P. Reed in just about every lineup that I could. However, we haven't seen that explosive. There for a few years he led in birdies are better. The tour on birdies are better. His birdie average is almost 7 around at one time, and it's just the explosiveness hadn't been there in the last couple of years. And we haven't ever seen him really do well in courses that would line up or parallel. But I love the idea of embracing the volatility. That's a new term from Joe. I just heard we got to embrace the volatility. I think if I'm doing anybody up here, I like Fitzpatrick. He can get going on those Bermuda greens, Joe. I like him. I do not like the 11,000. So I don't really know where to start here. I feel like most weeks I'm probably going to be in more of a value play, even in the GPPs, Joe. I'm not all in on the Pereira move yet. I know he's played a lot of tournaments, but I'm just not there on him yet. So I'm more of a value guy personally, and I would lean towards Fitzpatrick. I know 11K is pretty stout, but we can still get some value lower in the 8s and 7s. So I'm with you. The power move, he's got a couple, like you said, maybe a top 20 and a top 30. But I mean, let's be honest, Joe, in this field, that isn't really saying much. I mean, I know there's a lot of talent, but it's a weak field overall. So that's where I'm at up here at the top. don't know if you want to rebuttal that or we move on to the 9Ks.
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's one of those things where I think Mito's going to garner the majority of the ownership up here. I think you're going to see people flock to him. The form's been really good. The T degree numbers are really good. So I think Mito Pereira is going to garner a lot of ownership, and it's tough to argue with how he's played. One thing I would toss out there, AP, kind of a player that's in a similar vein as Mito Pereira is Hayden Buckley right there at 9.9K. I don't know that people are going to pull the trigger on him because A, they don't really know who he is, and B, that's a really high price tag when you can just go right up to Mito or a Seamus or a Reed. So I think Buckley, I'm going to keep an eye on ownership, but that's a really interesting pivot in GPPs. This is a kid, man, coming up off the KFT tour. That's extremely explosive. We've seen him play really well. Had a T4 and a T8 over his last two starts in the Shriners and the Sanderson. And this guy's putting together some rounds, man. I'm telling you, look out for this Hayden Buckley kid. Gained 6.7 strokes tee to green at the Shriners. Gained 5.8 strokes tee to green at the Sanderson. And listen to some of these rounds, AP. At the Shriners, 66, 71, 67, final round 63. At the Sanderson, 67, 65, 70, 66. I mean, this kid is coming on the PGA Tour and doing the thing, man. So if his ownership's going to be down there, I don't mind a bit jumping to Hayden Buckley there at 9.9K. When we take into account the strength of this field, and by that I mean how weak this field is, I think you could do a lot worse than taking a GPP shot with a player like him, or even looking at Matthias Schwab there at 9.7K.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was where I was pulling the trigger first. Hayden Buckley, recent form is very good. Just joined the PGA Tour this year. He's played 3 events, missed 1 cut, but 2 top 10. So, and this field is going to be wildly weaker than the first 3 fields he played in. So I'm with you on pulling the trigger on Hayden Buckley. He's the first guy I'm rostering from this price area or period on this event. More in the 9K, there's not much more to like. Chad Ramey's hits it long ways, but I'm not really, that isn't going to matter this week. Hadwin, I mean, he really hasn't been a consistent force. Maybe a Danny Willett, Joe. Strangely enough, at 9,300, are we actually talking about Danny Willett?
Yeah, I don't hate the Danny Willett call, AP. I think there's some kind of weird fits for him here. You start talking about, we know Willett's an extremely good wind player. We know he's great at playing coastal golf over in England. Shown some form, won recently on the Euro Tour. So I think, you can definitely take a look at Danny Willett. He also has a start under his belt here, which is more than we can say for a lot of these guys up here. Didn't play great last year, but had a T55. But we know that his form's always up and down, so it's kind of tough to gauge him, in past performances because his form is so up and down. I throw another couple Euro Tour guys out there you might want to look at. Thomas Dietrich there at 8.9K. Guido Migliozzi is a guy that we saw play extremely well throughout the summer. Really kind of played himself into Ryder Cup contention there, AP, but didn't get the call for the Ryder Cup, and his games kind of fell off a little bit as a result. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a little bit of disappointment there, but his last 2 starts have been really disappointing. I would have some interest in Guido there if it weren't for those last 2 starts, which just had some brutal rounds in there. Had an 81 in there last week. So scares me off of Guido a little bit. And then as we go down into the 8s, man, funny enough, we got a ton of course history here. Starting off with our boy Scott Stallings, T26 and the T18 and 2 Bermuda starts. And this little 8K range, man, Denny McCarthy, great course history, great putter. Ryan Armour, great course history, great putter. These guys are short off the tee, but they're very accurate off the tee. That's what we're targeting this week. So I think you can look at this 8K range, man.
Yeah, I'm pulling the trigger at least. I would be fine pulling the trigger 2 out of 3 of those guys you mentioned in every lineup. Crossing them back and forth. Ryan Armour, Stallings, McCarthy. I'm fine crossing those over and really those 3 making up a bulk of a lineup, Joe. What about Higo? Is the form too scary for Higo?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a form play, and I'm just out. Even though talent wise, he's definitely towards the top tier in this event. But the form just hadn't been there. He's coming over from Japan last week. Just a couple factors there that kind of make me want to shy away from Higo, especially when we see the course history that's available at this price point. I'd almost want to drop down to a Nick Hardy there as we bleed into the 7Ks. And we've said it before, kind of on these types of golf courses, AP, every player in the field is basically in play for us. Any of these guys can go out there and win because this is such a short golf course. So you don't really have to go all the way up to the top of the board. You can play more of a balanced build because all these guys are in play. All these guys have some form of winnability this week on this golf course. I mean, we saw Brendan Todd and Brian Gay are our two winners here. So there are lots of ways you can go, all viable this week. But that mid to low 8K range is certainly kind of interesting because of the course history that is there, and because so few guys in this field have course history. But when you start talking about just pure talent, Nick Hardy's a guy that I like. Really like the way he plays golf. He's a real tough competitor, and I could see his game translating to this layout. Nick Watney's a guy, a veteran that we've talked about. We've seen him play well during the swing season. And then another kind of course history guy, a guy, if we talk about, comps to Harbortown, comps to Pebble Beach, Russell Knox definitely sticks out for me, Andrew, there at 7.7K. And one of my favorite young players, a guy I want to touch on before I turn it back to you, Alex Smalley. I absolutely love playing this guy, love this price point in this tournament. He's an explosive player, just can't seem to put 4 rounds together. Always seems to kind of have a bad round tossed in there, but I love the direction his game's headed. And in this field at 7.6K, he's one of my favorite value plays on the slate. Alex Smalley there at 7.6.
Yeah, definitely 7K range is where most of your decisions are going to have to be made because there's such a first of all, just volume alone, there's a ton of people in the 7K range, but there's a lot of directions you can go. I mean, even as bad as this sounds, I could see Graham McDowell, Graham McDowell, Duffner, and the defending champ in the 7K range make it into some lineups, Joe.
Yeah, for sure, man. These experienced guys, these veteran guys, they know how to play these layouts. They're very good in the wind. I think we saw Graham McDowell win. Where did he win? Punta Cana or Puerto Rico or Corrales or somewhere like that.
He always plays well in Florida too, every year, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, these vets can pop up, man, especially if it gets windy out there. We see windy conditions. I definitely don't mind that line of thinking. Looking at one of these vets, a Duff or a G-Mac, like you mentioned, or even going back to a Brian Gay, who doesn't seem to play well anywhere. But we have to take into account this golf course isn't like anywhere else. So at 6,800 yards, we can see guys play well here when they're just physically not able to play well on these 7,500 yard golf courses that they see a lot. I wanted to toss out Hank Lebiota, guy that played really well to close out the season last year or earlier this year, last season. But hasn't really found it yet in the swing season, but got a T16 and a T3 on this golf course. If he gets that putter going, you might want to look out for Hank Lebiota. And I'll also toss out another guy there, a guy that I've really been a big fan of and pushed him a lot. Unfortunately, he's kind of playing his worst golf right when it's time to get on the PGA Tour, and that's Grayson Sigg. Really love how straight he hits the ball, and I think that'll translate well to this layout.
Yeah, I love Grayson Sigg too. We're going to see a lot of great things behind him. What, Joe, when you're down here in the 7K range here at the bottom, how sick is it to see that David Hearns had back-to-back top 10s on this course? The Canadian, the Canadian that can't putt somehow probably comes out here and hits irons off the tee and then hits evergreen and 2 putts, and he has back-to-back top 8s.
Yeah, Bermuda's actually his best surface, so maybe there's that. there with it. But Hearns a guy that's just tough to peg, man. It seems like he pops up with some really strong course history on just a handful of golf courses we see on the schedule. So, as we were saying, I don't think there are any crazy plays this week on this layout. I think course history and experience on this kind of unique course can be an advantage. So, if you want to toss David Hearn in some GPPs, I'm not going to argue with it.
There you go. I'm also looking at Nick Taylor at 7,400. Man, he has great course history at Pebble Beach. So I'm throwing him in there too. Getting down the 6K range, Joe. I would say that it gets thin, but it's more of people that we don't know yet. There's some bets in there, and then a lot of people we don't know. Interested still to see if Brandon Wu is going to continue head in the right direction. Let's go. Very inconsistent, but a Danny Lee plays well in Hilton Head, Joe. Get down through here, Joe. We're looking for guys that can just, maybe slice in there and find a top 10 out of nowhere.
Yeah. You're just trying to find some upside, man, which you can argue whether it's down here or not. But there's some, it's pretty much based up of kind of vets, journeymen that have been around the block that are kind of trying to hang on. KFT guys that maybe are down on the list as far as which tournaments they can get into. They're getting a shot this week. So we're seeing some players. We're kind of deep diving this week, man. Seeing some guys that we don't normally see. I think there's some viable options right there at the 7K price point. Some guys we can look at, a Bo Hogue, a guy that's a great iron player that we've seen play well, in recent months. Bo Hostler, a guy that we always want to look at on short golf courses where putting's going to matter. I think you can look at Hostler there at 7K. And then Kramer Hickok, a guy that, fell just short a few months ago in that kind of epic playoff to Harris English, has got really good course history here, a T8 and a T15 in this event. So he's a Texan, so we know he can play in the wind. That might be what's helped him to find some success on this layout. Same can be said for Hostler. So I think those are a couple guys there right at 7K that you can look at. But to kind of circle around to where you were, Andrew, as we dive down into the sixes, man, we're really throwing darts. This field is weak in the 9K range. So as we get down into the sixes, it's really tough, man.
I want to throw out some names that you would only know if you've been watching golf for over a decade. John Rollins, Heath Slocum, Ted Purdy, J.J. Henry, D.A. Points, Frank Licklider II, Olin Brown, Jason Bone. We haven't seen these guys in 5 years, Joe.
Feels like 98 up in
feels like 98.
Here,
there you go.
Feels like 98 up in here.
I mean, yeah, we talking about the journeyman, but heck, who wouldn't want to go
Bo
down?
Van Pelt, Jonathan Bird, Andrew.
Hey, Bo Van Pelt won a golf tournament in the last 2 years, Joe.
Ricky Barnes. Let me throw a little Ricky Barnes at you.
I will say this, guys. Who wouldn't take an opportunity? I mean, if you're these guys in this guy's shape, man, who wouldn't take the opportunity to go down to the Bermuda and play for $1 million though on probably just one of the prettiest golf courses they're going to play all year anyway. Ben Crane, top 10, 2 years ago? It's wild. We're not. I'm interested in the young guns. I want to see John Pack step up. I want to see a Dylan Wu step up. I want to see Andy Novick step up. Brandon Wu. I want to see these guys that we don't know yet. We haven't seen a lot of yet to just flash. And I will say one guy down here in the sixes that has popped up out of nowhere every once in a while. There's actually two. Piercy, Vaughn Taylor.
Yeah.
Those guys somehow just consistently put out top 40 finishes. And with the weaker field, this is where you're going to see them maybe pop in the top 10.
Yeah, I agree, man. Anything kind of goes down here. I'll toss another name out kind of that falls in that vein. That's Scott Brown there at 6,500. I mean, it's a guy that just we will on occasion see just get red hot and make a ton of birdies and, log a top 10 or a top 5. But one of the names you mentioned, John Pock, this guy I'm very interested to see. I mean, this was an extremely highly touted guy coming out of college, out of USC. So I think, it's kind of time that he shows us a little something, Andrew. So I'm with you on him. Want to see what he's doing. And you mentioned the Woo boys, Dylan and Brandon. Those two guys are both talented. So, a lot of young guys, a lot of vets. Kind of just depends on which way you want to go this week.
David Skins, journeyman from the KFT Tour, University of Tennessee graduate from Europe, has played a lot in the wind. Throw that name out there. He is a 39-year-old rookie though, Joe. So, but we'd love to see him do well. Anyway, it's time for our most important part of the episode. Where is your dart at this week, Joe? Pick up a dart from the deep valleys and throw it. Where are we sticking?
I feel like I could name a 9K guy, and it's a dart. John Pock went to Florida State too, but I said USC. I don't know what I was thinking, but just to correct that, I'm gonna throw out my boy Alex Smalley. Really like him as a player. Like the direction he's headed. Really explosive player. I think this will be a good fit for him. I'm going Alex Smalley as my dart. Who you throwing at the board, AP?
I'd like to throw Matthew Naismith in there at 7,300. Plays well on shorter golf courses. However, he was in the Zozo Championship, could have a little bit of jet lag. So for that reason alone, I love Russell Knox on golf courses where where he hits a lot of fairways and a lot of greens. Really, really is good. Where he's not hitting hybrids into par fours. Love Russell Knox, love Nick Taylor, love David Hearn. And those three guys, I still think Nick Taylor has the best chance to win. So my dart play of the week in the 7K has got to be Nick Taylor. Where's my heart at? I could see Fitzpatrick winning this. Cannot believe I'm saying that out loud. Matthew Fitzpatrick is probably pretty easily the best player in the field. Short golf course wind. I like him. Yeah, makes a ton of sense, man. Great fit. As you mentioned, without question, one of the top 2-3 players in this field this week. The course is a perfect fit for his game, so Fitzpatrick makes a lot of sense. I also think Bezadenhout makes a lot of sense. I mean, these guys are putters, right? They're short, they're accurate, they make a ton of putts. That's what this golf course requires. So it should fit both of these two right down to the ground, man. I like Mito. I just love his talent from tee to green, really kind of in all facets of the game. But this golf course might kind of work against him. We saw Will Zalatoris last year. He was kind of the up-and-coming young gun in this event. Had a ton of talent, in comparison to the rest of the field. Had kind of a mediocre outing, and I feel like maybe this golf course kind of mutes that explosive tee to green ball striking type player a little bit. So while I want to say Mito, I'm gonna go Buckley. I'm gonna go another young gun. I'm gonna say Hayden Buckley. I think he'll be a really good pivot in GPPs this week. Yeah, love Hayden Buckley play. That's if Fitzpatrick wasn't 11K, I could see supporting him a lot more in DFS. But I love Hayden Buckley. Like I said earlier, that's the first trigger I'm pulling, Joe. So you heard everything we got to tell you here on the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. Like what you hear, please hit the like, share with friends. We're on Apple, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Play. And we're on YouTube, especially, guys. Rotoballer.com, thank you for everything you do. My friend Joe Nicely, lead golf editor at Rotoballer.com, thank you for coming on again. And on sign up for PGA Premium, please use the promo code NICE, or sign up for any kind of premium on Rotoballer.com. We are only halfway through the NFL season, rocking and rolling up there. We got daily stuff. Guys, thank you, Rotoballer.com. Golfers, you've listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast.
I've already hit 3 in the lake. It's gonna drive